Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ask Rob and Rob. Just us two again. We finally got rid of that pesky Pete. No thank you to Pete Matthew who's been on our show the last couple of weeks. If you haven't listened to those episodes, please do. We got some absolutely amazing value and insight from Pete. But this week it's back to hardcore property. Rob and I are back at what we do best. And hopefully you're going to agree by the end of the show. Now, luckily, loads of questions continue to come in, and thank you for that. But if you haven't yet asked a question on Ask Rob and Rob, or you want to be a repeat visitor, make sure you contact us by one of these methods.
Yep, dead easy. Give us a call, 013 808 0035. That's 013 808 0035. Or you can go to thepropertyhub.net/ask. Either way, you can just leave us a voicemail and get your question in. And that is what Daniel did this week.
Hi Rob and Rob, it's Daniel here from London. I'm a new listener, fairly new listener to the show, and I'm really enjoying it and catching up on loads of the old podcasts and information. Thanks so much, really enjoying it. So I own my property outright, and I'd like to know what options I have for releasing the equity to begin purchasing investment properties. I'm going to be contacting a mortgage broker, but I want to go in with some ideas. So possibly I could buy one property, a small property in London, or a couple of properties in Manchester. Do you think this is a good idea, or is there anything else that I'm missing out? Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. Great question. Let's break this down into a few parts, and let's start with the mortgage itself. Now, you want to release equity, so first you have to establish how much equity you have in the property. So with a residential mortgage, you'll be able to refinance up to 95% of the value of the property. Now, you may not want to do that because the rates at that level of loan to value are not as attractive. You may want to do 70% of the value, for example, and then get a far better rate. So speak to a mortgage broker and they'll be able to give you an insight into the difference you can expect in rates and therefore payments. So do that first. Once you've done that, you really need to decide on whether you want to take your equity out in one chunk, which is, to be fair, what most people do. So let's say you took £100,000 out of your property, that would land in your bank, and then you'd need to go and invest that and put it to good use in a not too distant future. Or you can get an offset mortgage, or sometimes described as a mortgage with a drawdown facility. And in effect, that turns your property into a bit of a bank account because you still have access to that 100k, but you only pay interest on it when you draw down the money. Now, let's say you've got £100,000 set up from a drawdown facility and you can access that anytime you want. If you took £50,000 out to go and buy a property, then you would only start paying interest on that £50,000. But also, if you bought one property, £50,000, and you started to get rent in and you wanted to pay that mortgage back down, that would start to reduce the payments of that mortgage. So it offers a lot of flexibility. Now, you normally pay a slight premium in rate for that, but that flexibility is often appealing for buy-to-let investors. So speak to your mortgage broker about both of those options. Now, Rob, that's the technical bit on how you get your hands on the cash, but the most exciting bit, of course, is using it.
Yeah, it is the most exciting bit. It's also the bit, I think, where Daniel should be focusing the most, because yes, you need to choose the right mortgage product, and that's really important, but knowing what you're going to do with the money is extremely important, and it all, as we've said many times before, ties back into your goals. Should you buy one property in London, 2 in Manchester, 5 in Wales? That's not something that two guys on a podcast can give you an answer to. You have to kind of work back from what is it that you're trying to achieve. You've managed to pay off your mortgage, which is a fantastic achievement. It's something that a lot of people strive to do for a long time. If you're now considering taking out a mortgage again to invest in property, you need to have a strong reason for doing so, and you need to have a plan that will allow you to get to where you want to be. So what's the goal here? Are you trying to generate a certain amount of income per month? And if so, why? Why is that a meaningful amount to you? Are you trying to generate a certain amount of capital growth in excess of what you'll get from your own home? So that's something that you can use later in life. You need to figure that out first, and then target the type of properties that are most likely to achieve that goal for you, what amount of income it is or what amount of growth it is, and over what period of time. The great thing about property is it's really flexible. But the bad thing about property is it's really flexible as well. There are lots of choices that you can make, and it's really important to make those choices early, because if you just go out and buy a property on a whim, then realise a few years down the track that wasn't the right thing for you to do, changing course is quite difficult. It's not something you can just buy or sell like shares. So while you're talking to brokers and researching your mortgage options, do your property investment research as well. Spend time going through the podcasts, spend time going through the free courses at thepropertyhub.net/courses, build your property knowledge, work on your goals, figure out what it is that you want property to do for you. Once you've done that, you can work backwards and figure out what type of property and where and how much and all the rest of it.
Absolutely, Daniel. And a general piece of advice for everyone listening. We've touched on this before, but I'm not embarrassed to go over this again because it's so important. Always be wary of people who start giving you advice without understanding your goals and your situation. Happens a lot in property, and normally it's done with best intentions because people just want to be helpful. If they don't understand who you are, where you're at in life right now, and where you want to get to in the future in some detail, how can they give you good advice? So the reason why Rob and I today can't say, right, go to Sheffield, meet this estate agent, buy this property, is because we don't know enough about you. But that in itself is a big, big lesson. And hopefully we can carry on with those lessons with our next listener, who's Lauren, who's left us this question.
Hi Rob and Rob, it's Lauren from Walthamstow here. So I've got a question about solicitors. I'm due to complete on a property through my limited company that has taken 3 months to go through conveyancing. This is largely due to the solicitors that are acting for me. I'm using insisted I use a firm on their approved list, and they've been the most unprofessional people I have ever encountered. They never return my calls or emails, not only for me, but also like my vendor's solicitor, the agent in the middle, and the broker that I'm using. The deal has almost fallen through twice because of them. I even lodged a formal complaint with the lender. Not only did they find it difficult to get hold of anyone themselves, they basically washed their hands of it and said I should have picked someone better. This is quite a large firm, and not even the partners seem too bothered about this. So I was due to complete last Friday. The mortgage offer expires on Saturday, and today's Monday. I still haven't heard from anyone. What should I do?
Lauren, I feel for you, and I'm sure a lot of people listening right now do as well. This, unfortunately, is not an uncommon situation by any means. You might think you're spectacularly unlucky because you're dealing with the worst firm in the world, and maybe you are, but really your chances of having this situation are pretty high because the way that the conveyancing process works and the service levels around it are so bad that this is a story that most investors will have after being in property for a certain amount of time. I could go off on a big rant at this point about how things should be and how ridiculous the whole thing is, and I'm tempted to do so, but instead I'll focus on what you can do about it. At this point, it sounds like you've done most things that you reasonably can do. You've been proactive, you've chased, you've complained to the lender. You didn't mention having complained to the solicitor. It's often the case when dealing with companies, especially solicitors, that you have to actually make a formal complaint before anything gets done. If you trigger their formal complaints procedure, they'll have an internal procedure that means they have to actually respond to you and be seen to be doing something about it. Whereas you can call and leave as many voicemails and as many angry emails as you like, and it's not going to make any difference because they don't see it as a formal complaint. Ridiculous that that's the way it is, but it's worth a try. At this point, doing that and working with your broker to see if they can extend your mortgage offer so that doesn't expire is pretty much the only thing you can do. But what can you do next time round when, unfortunately not if, this situation happens again? If the lender is choosing your solicitor, so you don't have free choice of who you use, then all you can really do, ridiculously, is take control of the situation yourself. It sounds like you've been very proactive here and you have been chasing, but do more and do it earlier and kick up a fuss earlier if you have to. It probably goes against your nature like it does for most people, but if the warning signs are there early that they're not providing the service that you need, then start kicking up a fuss earlier and escalate it earlier to allow time for the whole thing to be sorted before you lose the property or lose your mortgage offer. It's ridiculous that you should have to do that. It's not the way it should be. And even if you do that, because you don't have control over the other solicitors involved, that still doesn't guarantee success. But unfortunately, in this situation, all you can do is all you can do. You just have to take control of the bits that you can control and cross your fingers and hope that everything else works out.
The reason why I love this question is that so many people will be going through these experiences and thinking, why me? Why is it happening to me? But actually, it's why all of us. That's conveyancing. It is a pain in the bum. And hopefully one day it will get better. But I think it's really useful, especially for people new to property, to know that it can be a painful process. What is not a painful process, however, is getting in touch with us via social media. So whether it's Instagram, Twitter or Facebook, just type in @PropertyHubUK and you will find us. And you can engage with us that way. And of course, you've got the Property Hub forum as well. So however you want to communicate with us, by asking a question, getting in touch via social, or going on the forum, you've got plenty of options to engage with us and other wonderful hubbers. So make sure you do that. We'll be back on Thursday with the Property Podcast. And of course, we'll be back with Ask Rob and Rob this time next week. So until then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.